have this beautiful lady, Aisling O'Rourke, the communication coach, with me today on the Business Spotlight. So I can't wait to just chat to you about your business, Aisling. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's get into it. Okay. I just love talking to lots of different businesses to hopefully inspire anyone who is watching to go for it, if they're ready to. And so let's just talk about your business and your journey. So the first question that I have for you, Aisling, is like, why did you start the communication coach?
Um, I think it goes back to two things that happened to me in 2018. So, in my entire career, right up to 2018, was as a news journalist, a broadcast news journalist. So I worked in local national radio, and then I ended up as a senior editor with an international outlet that had a Dublin office. And in the spring of 2018, my dad took a stroke, and we discovered, as a result of him having the stroke, that he had a condition known as AL amyloidosis, and he was critically ill. Um, Now, at the time, that was a huge shock because in my family, I've been the person with the health issues. And so the fact of having somebody else in the family with health issues, the immediate family, I should say, came as quite a shock. And I had to change my life around. Like immediately, I had to move back down to Tullamore. I didn't have to. I chose to because I wanted to spend time with my father. We knew immediately that our time with him was limited. So initially, we were told if he survived 24 hours, we would be lucky. The weekend we would be lucky. We ended up having 2.5 years, and that's a whole
Amazing.
separate story. But as he recovered from that stroke, he had to exercise to get back over, to get his mobility back up. And he was a very, very independent, active man. He was 64. He was about 6 months out from retiring, and he was quite embarrassed by his sudden frailty. So I was still working away, driving up and down to Dublin every day, and my mum took the morning shift, I took the evening shift, and we managed between us to care for him. But at night, he wanted to do his exercise when I was at home with him. And that meant bringing him across the road to a housing estate to walk in the dark with someone who had just recovered from a stroke because he was so embarrassed about his frailty. But we were having one of these conversations around the kind of life that he had lived and the regrets that he had. And it really got me thinking about where I was with my life and my work-life balance. And a few months later, the company I was working for announced that they were closing their Dublin office. So in the space of about 6 months, I had two life quakes, and they forced me to take some time out to really reflect on the life that I was living, how it was impacting me overall, like as a human being, as opposed to just somebody who's a worker. And I had always had this idea of wanting to contribute to society, wanting to make an impact. That's why I went into journalism in the first place, because I believe in the power of public service. And so that led me on a journey to look at the skills that I had and how could they be utilized to help other people. So I went off and I trained to qualify as someone who can teach adults, so as a lecturer. And then I did my entrepreneurship course in Trinity. And between that kind of 2.5, 3 year block, I, took some time to formulate. And that's where the communications coach came from.
Brilliant. My goodness. What
That's
a
a longer
story.
answer than you were expecting. I'm sorry.
No, that is great. Like honestly, it's just, yeah, it is interesting how quite often our growth or our what we come to comes out of something difficult, and I really get it because my own dad had cancer. But gosh, he's gone now a long old time. But at the time, it really made me look at things and go, okay. Um, Yeah, like you said about your own dad, he was embarrassed about he had colon cancer and he had to have a bag, and there was a lot of things he was just really embarrassed about, and he became more reclusive, and he was such a big personality. I'd say that's where I get like, well, actually double dose. My mum is pretty big too, but it's funny
Yeah.
how these things help us reflect, and go, okay, is this what I want? So
And
yeah,
I
it's
think
fascinating, isn't it?
for me, looking at my father, who was like, my father worked in the Department of Agriculture, and he would have represented Ireland internationally at European Union meetings and all that sort of thing. And he loved his job and he was really good at it and very respected in his job. And like, his claim to fame was that when he got sick, they had to find three people to take over his one job. But then he kind of, I remember he had that realization and going, God, I was doing the work of three people. Sure, no wonder I'm so tired. Do you know? And it was watching him come to those realizations through the conversations that we had, but in his own acceptance of his situation. In a way, it was a gift. Do you know? It was a gift to me because it really gave me the opportunity to see, actually, do I want to work 365 days a year? Do I want to be on duty 24/7? Because that's what I felt like. And no employer I ever had asked that of me, but that's what I was giving to my career. And I decided that, actually, you know what, this is not healthy. I want a better quality of life for myself. And at that stage, I had been a news anchor, a news journalist, for well over, God, 15 years at that stage, won awards. I was working internationally. I knew I could do the job. I was good at the job, but I'd hit a point where I thought, okay, what's next? And what can I
Juicy.
do to help others? Because I really had this passion for doing some kind of public service. And um, that's where, the teaching and the coaching really came in.
Brilliant. So, okay, let's talk about your clients. So, because I always find that really interesting, is we have a perspective of our business, and of why it was birthed. And then there is like, okay, like what's the need of your client? And I always, when I'm talking to people in the business spotlight, what I'm always fascinated by is that, and you've touched on it in terms of impact. You've already said that you want to make a difference. I always find that it's not just about the communications, right? It always goes deeper. So, what do your clients say? Right, wow, Ashling, this is what happens when I start working with you, and maybe they didn't expect it.
I think so. I have a couple of strands to my business. So I help people clarify their communication strategy and really hone in and getting clear messaging and around their brand and how they're talking to people, whether that's in writing or video or in person. So that's one side. I also help people interact with the media. And how do you go about elevating your visibility? How do you write a press release? How do you prepare for an interview? Because getting an interview with a journalist is an incredibly valuable business opportunity. And if you don't really prepare for that, you're not going to get as much value out of it as you should. And then the other part then is helping people build confidence in their public speaking. So I, for me, a lot of it comes back to being another brain for the client, like a different perspective. So my clients are primarily service-based business people. They range from ecumenical ceremony providers to people in the tech space, so it's very varied. Predominantly female. That wasn't intentional, but I'm not against it. And it's all about helping them really get working on their visibility around their business, and that's my big thing. And, for some people, if it's the media side of things, getting involved in the media, liaising with a journalist, building a database of appropriate media professionals for their business to network with, That can be incredibly daunting, and it can seem like, you know, there's this secret world, and there's not, you know, there really isn't, but it's helping people build the tools. And like, so clients would say that I help them demystify the media for them. Like, my whole thing is around cutting through the noise, you know. So there's an awful lot of noise, you know. We live in a very, very noisy world, and it's very hard to, you know, get a bit of attention on your company, your brand, as a business person even. So it's helping people figure out the appropriate strategies for them and what their needs are. So like, to give you an example of one client that I'm working with at the moment, it initially started off with how they were, their elevator pitch, how they were introducing themselves to potential clients at networking events. It's now turned into, you know, we've got that bit down and we're happy with that. And now they want to launch a podcast and have a big event at the end of the year. So they're, you know, one project has led into two, and the messaging all around that and clarifying that and helping share it in a way that the audience can actually understand it.
Yeah, amazing. You're so passionate about it. I can see, I can, it comes across so strongly. What part of your business do you just absolutely love the most?
I really love the coaching and working with people one on one. You know, it's great that I get to speak at events, and I love that, and I love being a speaker, and I run my own podcast, and that's fantastic. So I think it's those, it's the working directly with people and seeing them grow, you know, and build confidence. And then, like, I had a client who I started working with in April of last year. Karen Dempsey's the lady's name, and Karen and I have worked together on and off over the last 12 months, and she ended up on the Tommy Tiernan show in February. Like, and just to see her do that, her to take the advice that I was able to give, the coaching work that we were able to do, and to put that then into practice on such a phenomenally large platform, you know, that's amazing for me to see a client go from strength to strength. I take real pride out of that, you know.
Yeah, I would
And
too. That's
I,
amazing.
yeah, it's wonderful. And she's a phenomenal woman. She runs an organization called Entheos. They're really, really incredible people, and I'm really proud to have to have worked with them. And that, I think that it's the seeing what people do with the advice that I'm able to give, the work that I'm able to give. Now, you know, I do take a bit of a teacher's mindset to it, like, there is homework involved. Um, because, you know, if you invest in coaching, it's an investment financially. So you want to make sure that you're actually getting value for money. So turning up to meet me once a week to talk about a particular press release or a communications plan, that's grand. And if that's all you have time for, fine. If that's what you want to do, fine. But if you really put the work in, that's where the value comes.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay, interesting. And then who inspires you in business? Like, so, like, I get this passion, but like, who do you look to and go, okay, like, this is where I can bring my clients, but then this is where I want to bring my business because I'm inspired by this person, or, you know, I always think that's really valuable to people watching because we all are the product of everything that we've learned on our own experience. And then I think when we share that with others, that ripple effect can be amazing, you know?
I have two. Okay. One has been an inspiration to me throughout my life. So Mary Robinson, the first female president of Ireland, has to be my big inspiration. So I, to this day, and I don't know, did my mother record the inauguration ceremony or did we have the day off school? I've no idea. But I distinctly remember my mum sitting me down to watch Mary Robinson's speech. And all she said was, this woman's going to change this country. This is important. Things will be different for you as a result of her. Pay attention.
Right.
And that really stuck with me. So and I was in early primary school when she was inaugurated as the first female president of Ireland. And so I followed her career and what she has done throughout. So going from being, obviously a solicitor, a lawyer, to an activist, to an icon for the country, and someone that, regardless of your political color in Ireland, I think it's fair to say that most of us are proud of her. We all felt a mehel around Mary Robinson representing us. And now she's gone, she's a podcaster, a member of the elders, a climate change ambassador, and she is now, in her not latter years of life, but is older and wiser and more experienced in life, as we would say. And she's been able to pivot over the years. And there are strands to what she has done that, if you look at her career, you can trace back and you can see the connection, but it's not immediately obvious. And I think I was raised, I like to think of myself as being part of the Mary Robinson generation in Ireland, where young girls we were brought up in this time of possibility and excitement of that we could get the highest job in the land. Do you know that? And I think that sounds now, I think if you weren't here at the time, sounds a bit airy fairy, but genuinely, I remember in primary school, like, we felt that, so I think following her and how she has managed even her communications strategy, she's just such a phenomenal person. So not a traditional business person per se, but definitely has been someone who I look to for inspiration throughout my career. And I will go back to time and time again to see, what would Mary do? The other person is a woman that I met when I was starting out the communications coach. So I signed up to a mentoring program, and I was assigned Kate Rooney of the On Legs agency. And Kate is from Northern Ireland. We are, I think, both quite different people, but I like to think of her as the Duracell bunny. She's just one of these people with a phenomenal amount of energy. It nearly frightens me. But she started out working in retail and has now gone into team coaching and, that whole executive coaching piece, around, the life coaching side of things. And she has been a great support to me. She's the person that if I'm stuck on something, I can send her a voice note and say, listen, what do you think about this? How does this feel to you? And talk it out. So yeah, she's always been in my corner, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Oh, that is brilliant. God, they are two very interesting examples. And yeah, being of the Mary Robinson generation, yeah, I agree, and there was so much, she was under scrutiny so much for her communications that I can see how she really inspired you, especially in your business, and how it has evolved. Like, yeah, I'm with you. And actually, I can't remember, there's a comedy that of course my brain is just gone, perimenopause, ha. But they did an episode and she was being voted in, and the women were like, had the Mary Robinson haircut, and it was just such Moon Boy. And it was just so funny because it was so true, like we were all like, yes, bring it, like bring Mary Robinson. This is our time, and yeah, you've got to see it. And I think you've got to see people there, and we can't underestimate that as our country evolves, and in terms of, showing little girls that they can do it too, So I think it's so important to show up to inspire other people. And that leads me quite neatly to my next question, because it's, what advice would you share? What advice would you share to someone who's a few rungs down the ladder from you, and you're pulling them up and you're saying, look, this is what I would share. So just like Kate listens to you, like, what would you share with somebody else who's a few rungs down the ladder from you?
I think it's, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think because it's starting your own business can be very lonely, and it can be very intimidating. And if you don't come from, like in many ways, working as a journalist, I was running my own little business because I was, for a significant portion of my career, I was freelance, and because that's how the media industry operates. So I was already having to do my accounts every year and all of that. Now, not in an organized fashion, I will admit, but they were done. And if revenue is listening, they were always filed on time. But yeah, I think it's about, it's like that, like go to the local Leo office for advice. I think when you're starting out, that can be quite intimidating, walking in and thinking that everybody has themselves sorted and everybody else is more organized than I am, and they all know what they're talking about and I haven't a clue. But actually, I think it took me a while to really investigate the Leos. So I'm from County Offaly. I spend a lot of time in Dublin, so I live between both counties, and they have been a great support to me. I think I was afraid of not being taken seriously to begin with, because sure, what does a journalist know about running a business? But that actually, I think for me, learning to ask for help and then listening. Now, I'm not going to say, I think one should always be very careful as to who you take advice from. I think, you can, and I've made mistakes, and I've taken advice from the wrong people and all of that. We all do that. But just be careful that you're actually opening yourself up to learning more and improving and asking for help.
Brilliant. Great advice. Thank you. What was the best advice you have received that got you maybe from the last space you were in terms of that level, to bringing your business to the next level?
I was raised with the adage under promise and over deliver. And I've always tried to do that. So for me, that's about, not maybe exactly what you can do for a potential client, but don't give it all away at once. Like, make it sustainable for yourself, and then over deliver where you can so that you will keep the client happy. I think it's about really trying to set yourself up in the best way possible, and that thing of never letting somebody down because you've overpromised. That will do your reputation damage that is very hard to repair in the long term. So I think, yeah, it's that practice of, okay, yeah, that's no problem. I can do this. I can do that. We look at doing that, but it might not be doable in this time frame. But then if you can fit it in at the end and have somebody getting more value for money than they anticipated, brilliant.
Yeah. Good advice. Then I love this one because I think everyone tries ways to promote their business, even as a startup, so right at the very beginning actually is probably when you try loads of different things. But what strategy in your business thus far have you tried that you were like, oh, that is not for me?
I think there are an awful lot of events targeted at business people. There are an awful lot of events targeted at new business people. So I've gone to a couple of events where I've come away and thought, well, that speaker's not for me, or that strategy that they're selling is not for me. I don't know that I've tried a strategy per se and kind of gotten the ick from it. I like to try and, where possible, like don't get me wrong, I'm not into toxic positivity. I'm a realist, but where possible, I do try and take positivity from every situation. Like there's so many courses and workshops being sold to would-be entrepreneurs that it's very easy to spend a lot of money. And then, that course that you signed up for, that's on demand, when are you ever really going to get around to doing it? So I think you have to be really careful around things like that I've learned, maybe for me, it's about sustainability, and it's about, not trying to bite off more than I can chew at one time and burning myself out. And that is something, because I do live with invisible disability. So I have to be mindful of balancing my energy levels. And because I always try to underpromise and overdeliver, not taking on too much at one time. And that for me is where the learning has been.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah, because we can spread ourselves too thin sometimes with our energy, can't we? And yeah, like you say, I find different things interesting, but you have to be mindful of your energy, don't you? That you are one person, and it takes a while to get that wheel to move.
Yeah.
So, the more energy you can put behind one thing that works for you, then you can get that wheel to move faster. So, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
good advice.
I learned that the hard way when my father got sick, because I was trying to be everything to everybody, and to not only care for him, but to care for my mum, to care for his siblings. I was taking on an awful lot of other people's needs and not attending to my own. And I did become that first year that he got sick. I had a serious medical issue that year, um, as a result of not minding myself.
Mhm.
And I think through that, I've been able to try and assess, like I said at the very outset of this, like the reason I started my business was because I know I have a service that can help people and I want to do that. But also, I want a better quality of life for myself. So, when I am maybe taking on a new project or a new client, I have to think to myself, well, does that serve the purpose? And that's a question that I don't always remember to ask myself, but I try to. Um, and trying to do that in a sustainable way so that everybody gets the best out of it, me included.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, building connection has been central to the success of my business. So I just wanted to find out from you, like, is connection important to you? And then how?
Absolutely. So, you know, I I see communications as being the connective tissue, in any business. And so actually then networking with other people and making good positive connections with other business people in particular, it's invaluable. It's wonderful to have a network of people. I can hop into the WhatsApp group and say, hey, give us a bit of support in this LinkedIn post, please. Or listen, I'm having this problem, please help. Has anybody encountered this before? That's the kind of stuff that money can't buy. And I think um, a lot of people feel uncomfortable around networking and attending networking events. It can be scary to walk in there on your own and not know somebody in the room. There are lots of networks out there that are just looking to take your money, let's be honest about it. So I think that was a big challenge for me at the very beginning, was finding a network that was my vibe, that I could be helpful and I could benefit from it as well, and that I could enjoy it and it could be sociable, it not just all business. And like you and I know each other because of the Leo in Dublin City, the women's network that they have there, and the wonderful work that Pauline Logan does with that, and I think it's just so important. And I think it's really, I'm not the person that attends a networking event every single week because I don't have time. I don't have the energy, but I do try and go at least once a month, if not twice a month, to two different events. And that's how I manage it. And I've made some really good friends through doing it, not just business colleagues. So yeah, I think it's absolutely vital. Like, we're part of a community, like it or lump it. So and particularly in my business where I work with service-based companies and business leaders, you know, I need to meet more and more people every week. And it's part of my practice. Um, so it's absolutely vital to what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I just find it so useful in so many ways of nurturing yourself as a person, getting feedback, obviously selling, but also buying, you know, so buying trusted services that you've met the people, you know, or that you have told me this person's great. I've worked with them, we network with them. I think connection. We're social apes, you know, like that we need to connect. And I think it's so important. You know,
And I think maybe even more so now, since more and more people are working from home and in the isolation of working from home,
yeah.
I think it's even more important. And I think, you know, in the corporate world, it would be a big mistake to forget that. You know, you need a team dynamic to get work done, and that is hard. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the flexibility that I have, you know, between I work hybrid effectively, and I'm really lucky that way. But, you know, as a company, you need there to be a bond with your staff. You need them to be able to create their own mehel, their own community, their own tribe, whatever way you want to work, so that they work well together, you know, and so that they're happy and that they want to stay on, because retaining staff is much, much cheaper than constantly having to recruit. Um, and I think it's something that, you know, yes, people can feel a bit icky around it, but that's more because it's nervousness. And I think once people get to understand the concept of it, then it's fine.
Yeah, so true. A lot of what I work with is connection, both in the like in-person space or online space in terms of networking, but also on social media. So I've got a little mantra. It's the hill that I will die on. It is like that people who say like, oh, social media doesn't work for me. It's because they're not acting like a human. So they have their beautiful personality, they have their beautiful values. They are generally speaking not narcissists. Generally speaking, my clients aren't narcissists. They're lovely. So, and then sometimes when they show up on social media, they forget who they are. And so my mantra to try to help, like not just my clients, but just people in my orbit to perform better on social is act like a human on social media. Do you have a mantra for the communications coach in your business, or your life indeed?
Yeah.
And what is it?
Well, I actually have two, and both come from my mum. My mum is an incredible force of nature. She's my absolute hero. But she always, it was always, I was always raised with trust your gut. And like, my gut can't tolerate dairy, gluten, or wheaten. So why on earth would I trust it? But I think, like, and I see all those memes doing the rounds, and I see people, like, you know, going, oh no, it's all this, that, and the other. I think for me, trusting your gut is really listening to what your gut is telling you, not that surface level, I'm nervous, so I'm not going to do a talk. No, it's understanding what's lying underneath that. So if, say, for instance, I'm on a discovery call with a potential client, and I feel like this person's going to be hard work, or I don't know if this is what I want to do, then trust that, you know, and, you know, suggest somebody who can serve them better than I can. So it's always for me, trust your gut. And I think, like, I genuinely believe that if you really listen to what your gut is telling you, and if it really feels wrong, then there's a reason for that, and you have to pause and understand that. And then the other one is around your values. So in my mum's side of the family, aunts, uncles, cousins, we were always raised with don't forget your standards. So for me, it's about my values in my business. So, like, for example, I have lost people in my life, and I've had people go through cancer as a direct result of smoking, and have suffered difficulty as a result of vaping. So for me and my business, they're not companies that I will work with, because they don't align with my values, you know? So I think it's about knowing what your values are and making choices based on those values.
Brilliant. Yeah, I agree 100% with both of those. Oh, yeah, they're great, honestly. And I do think Do you know, I think it's really important for business people to hear at every stage, because sometimes we disconnect from our intuition and our gut instinct, but it won't set you wrong, you know. And I think in a world that has become very commoditized, and now with AI, which is great, but I think just having your standards and your values are, yeah, it's very important. You know, I feel like we need to come back to that. So great. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. So come on, tell us, what's your dream for the next year or even longer or maybe shorter? What's your dream for your business? In whatever time scale is appropriate to you.
I think in the next year for me, it's continuing what I'm doing. It's building more speaking events. I think would be on the wish list. I'm going to be speaking for Monaghan Women in Business now in May, so I'm looking forward to that. I know you and I are going to do a workshop together. I'm looking forward to that. So for me, for now, I'm happy growing and continuing to do it at a nice sustainable level for me. Um, and yeah, I'd like to see the podcast cut through the noise of Dashing O'Rourke. See there, get me plug in, get a bit more traction. You know, that's I only launched that in the last couple of weeks, so that's I suppose the focus at the moment is in building up that and building visibility around that. Um, I think at the moment I don't have any big fancy plans. You know, at the moment I'm growing but I'm really happy with how things are going. So I'm quite content to be able to work in the way I have been over the last number of months. It's gotten into a nice flow, and I'm quite content with that.
Brilliant. And then last question, how can people work with you?
So, okay, so everything lives on the communicationscoach.ie. So I do one-to-one coaching, and then, as I said, I do speaking events as well, like workshops for business groups and that. So yeah, get in contact with me. So the email is hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. And let's see how I can help you thrive in your business.
Brilliant. Well, those links, depending on where you're watching us, um, are going to be with the information that I share with this video. So reach out to Aisling. I certainly I'm fascinated by the depth of knowledge that you can share with people. So thank you so much for joining me today on the Business Spotlight. I've really enjoyed listening to your journey. And thank you so much for sharing your experience with me today.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Elaine. And if you don't mind, I will say that there is a free video on my website. So if people are looking for PR tips, if you just go on to the communicationscoach.ie, there's a banner at the top of the screen. Click on that, fill in your details. You'll get a video. Nice things like 5 minutes, very short, short and sweet. And I hope that gives people even more value than today's conversation.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. I'm sure it will. So the links, go click on them, go to Aisling's website and go get that information that you need because it's really going to help your business. Thank you so much.